In the fast-paced world of manufacturing, one of the most critical, yet often overlooked aspects is how we allocate our costs. Have you ever stopped to think about how your company decides which products are profitable and which ones are not? It's a bit like trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit together, isn't it? And if you're in a position where you're making decisions based on distorted cost information, you might end up with a picture that's completely misleading. This is where the manufacturing overhead misallocation problem rears its ugly head. Imagine you're the decision maker in a manufacturing firm. You're looking at the numbers, and they tell you that product A is raking in profits, while product B is barely breaking even. But what if I told you that those numbers might not be telling the whole story? What if the way you're allocating your overhead costs is skewing your perception of profitability? It's a daunting thought, right? The reality is that many organizations are still clinging to outdated costing methods that simply don't cut it in today's complex manufacturing landscape. Let's rewind for a moment. Historically, manufacturing costs were straightforward. You had direct labor and materials, and you could trace those costs directly to your products. Back in the day, allocating factory overhead based on direct labor made sense. But as we've evolved, so has our production cost structure. Nowadays, direct labor represents just a fraction of total costs. With the rise of automation and global sourcing, overhead expenses have ballooned, and yet many companies still allocate these costs using the same old methods. It's like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It just doesn't work anymore. And here's the kicker. When managers rely on distorted cost data to make decisions about pricing, product mix, and process technology, they're setting themselves up for failure. As Robin Cooper and Robert Kaplan pointed out, most companies only realize there's a problem after their competitiveness has taken a nosedive. It's like waiting until your car breaks down on the highway to realize it needs an oil change. Change is not just needed, it's urgent. So what can we do about it? First, we need to rethink our cost allocation models. The goal here is twofold. We need to develop more accurate product costing models and at the same time, justify our organizational cost structures. This isn't just about tweaking a few numbers. It's about fundamentally changing how we view our costs. Let's break this down. There are 12 characteristics of a cost model that can put a manufacturing organization at risk. For instance, if your company is applying a single overhead rate across the board or using only one type of base, like direct labor or machine hours, you're likely missing the mark. This one-size-fits-all approach ignores the complexities of modern manufacturing and can lead to serious miscalculations. Consider this. Many companies are adopting new technologies and lean manufacturing techniques, but fail to adjust how they cost their products accordingly. It's like upgrading your smartphone, but still using an old flip phone charger. You're not getting the full benefits of that shiny new device because you're stuck in the past. Another red flag? If your organization lumps all costs related to purchasing, receiving, and handling materials into overhead without properly assigning them to specific products, you're in trouble. This lack of granularity can distort your understanding of product profitability and lead to misguided strategic decisions. And let's not forget about outsourcing. If your company is outsourcing certain manufacturing processes but not tracking the costs associated with those decisions, you're flying blind. Multiple handling, paying, transportation, scheduling, these are all costs that need to be accounted for. Otherwise, you might think you're saving money when, in reality, you're just shifting costs around without any real insight into their impact. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds complicated. Where do I even start? The good news is that you don't have to tackle this alone. The first step is to ensure that your allocation methods are based on the true drivers of your costs. You need to ask yourself, what are the actual activities that drive costs in our production process? To get there, you'll want to engage deeply with your operations. This means stepping out of your office and onto the production floor. Talk to the people who are doing the work. Understand how production runtimes change with different products. What are the switching costs? What happens when you change from one product to another? These insights are invaluable and can help you craft a more accurate picture of your costs. And while you're at it, make sure you're revisiting your cost models regularly. Just because something worked well 5 years ago doesn't mean it's still relevant today. The manufacturing landscape is constantly evolving, and so should your cost accounting practices. Now, let's talk about the allocation basis for your manufacturing overheads. It's crucial to select a method that truly reflects the nature of your indirect costs. Think about the volume output of your products and how that relates to your production processes. The allocation base should be closely tied to the actual activities that drive your costs. Use common sense here. Avoid getting bogged down in numbers that don't make sense. If something feels off, it probably is. Lean manufacturing can provide valuable insights, but it's essential to implement it thoughtfully. You don't want to create new problems while trying to solve old ones. And remember, it's not about assigning blame when things go wrong. Mistakes are part of the process, and it's essential to learn from them. Instead of pointing fingers, focus on how to move forward and improve your cost allocation processes. Now, let's pivot to the importance of providing knowledge and tools to your team. Change can be daunting, especially for accountants who have been trained in traditional methodologies. But as the landscape shifts, so too must our approach. It's about equipping your team with the knowledge and tools they need to succeed. One effective way to do this is through activity-based costing, ABC training. ABC allows you to allocate costs more accurately by considering all the activities that go into manufacturing. It's about understanding the nuances of your production process and having accurate data on the cost of each activity. Without this knowledge, you're operating in the dark. Ultimately, effective cost control is a cornerstone of success in manufacturing. Managers need to be aware of the specific drivers behind their efficiency and how each activity impacts production and sales. It's about fostering a culture of awareness and continuous improvement. As we wrap this up, let's reflect on the bigger picture. The principles of cost accounting we've relied on for nearly a century are no longer sufficient in today's competitive environment. We need systems that can adapt to the complexities of modern manufacturing, where flexibility and quality are paramount. Management by intuition alone isn't going to cut it anymore. Accounting and financial executives must shift their focus from external reporting to accurate internal reporting. This is how we ensure long-term success and maintain our competitive edge. So, let's take this challenge head-on. Let's fix the manufacturing overhead misallocation problem and pave the way for better decision-making, improved profitability, and a more sustainable future for our organizations. Change is not just necessary. It's the key to thriving in an ever-evolving landscape. Let's embrace it together.